Hello, welcome Dr. Sushma Singh this side. Today in Unit 25 Urbanization, let us start our lecture with topic the process of urbanization. Urbanization as a structural process of change is generally related to the industrialization, but it is not always a result of industrialization. Urbanization results from the concentration of large-scale and small-scale industrial and commercial, financial and administrative setups in the cities. Technological development in transport and communication, cultural and recreational activities. The excess of urbanization over industrialization that makes it possible to provide employment for all persons coming to urban areas is in fact what some things leads to over urbanization. In India, a peculiar phenomena is seen: industrial growth without a significant shift of population from agriculture to industry, and of growth of urban population without a significant rise in the ratio of the urban to the total population. While in terms of ratio there may not be a good shift from rural to urban activities, but there is still a large migration of population from rural area to urban areas. This makes urban areas choked. There is a lack of infrastructural facilities to cope up with this rising population. Urbanization implies a cultural and social psychological process whereby people acquire the material and non-material culture, including behavioral patterns, forms of organization, and ideas that originated in or are distinctive of the city. Although the flow of the cultural influences is in both directions, both towards and away from the city, there is substantial agreement that the cultural influences exerted by the city on non-urban people are probably more pervasive than reverse. Urbanization seen in this light has also resulted in what Tony B has called the westernization in the world. The idea of urbanization may be made more precise and meaningful when interpreted as aspects of diffusion and acculturation. Urbanization may be manifest either as intra-society or inter-society diffusion. That is, urban culture may spread to various parts of the same society, or it may cross cultural or national boundaries and spread to other societies. It involves both borrowing and lending. On the other side of the diffusion coin is acculturation, a process whereby the individuals acquire the material possessions, behavioral patterns, social organizations, bodies of knowledge, and meanings of groups whose culture differs in certain respect from their own. Urbanization, as seen in this light, is a complex process. The history of urbanization in India reveals broadly four processes of urbanization at work throughout the historical period. These are the emergence of new social relationships among people in cities and between people in cities and those in villages through a process of social change. The rise and fall of cities with changes in the political order. The growth of cities based on new productive processes which alter the economic base of the cities, and the physical spread of cities with the inflow of migrants who come in search of a means of livelihood as well as a new way of life. Now let us move to the next point: urbanization as a socio-cultural process. Cities are social artifacts and stands apart from the countryside in terms of the higher degree of its acceptance of foreign and cross-cultural influences It is a melting pot of people with diverse ethnic, linguistic, and religious backgrounds. Seen in this light, urbanization is a socio-cultural process of transformation of folk, peasant, or feudal village societies. India has a continuous history of urbanization since 600 BC. Over this period, three major socio-cultural processes have shaped the character of the Indian urban societies. There are Aryanization, Persianization, and Westernization. The Aryan phase of urbanization generated three types of cities: the capital cities, where the secular power of the Kshatriya was dominant; the commercial cities, dominated by the Vaishyas; and the sacred cities, which for a time were dominated by Buddhists and Jains, who were Kshatriyas, and later by Brahmins. With the advent of Muslim rule from the 10th century AD, the urban centers in India acquired an entirely new social and cultural character. The city became Islamic, Persian, and later Urdu was the official language of the state, and Persian culture dominated the behavior of the urban elite. The impact of 154 years of British rule in India, that is westernization, is clearly visible in various aspects of the city life today: in administration, in education, and in language of social interaction of the city people and their dress and mannerism. Urbanism is clearly identified with westernization. Now let us move to the next point: urbanization as a political administrative process. Administrative and political development have played an important role in urbanization in the past, and they continue to be relevant today. From about the 5th century BC to the 18th century AD, urban centers in India emerged, declined, or even vanished with the rise and fall of kingdoms and empires. Patliputra, Delhi, Madurai, and Golconda are all examples of the cities that flourished, decayed, and sometimes revived in response to changes in the political scene. The administrative or political factor often acts as an initial stimulus for urban growth, which is then further advanced by the growth of the commercial and industrial activities. Now let us move to the next point: urbanization as an economic process. Urbanization in modern times is essentially an economic process. Today, the city is a focal point of productive activities. It existed and grows on the strength of the economic activities existing within itself. It is the level and nature of the economic activity in the city that generates growth and therefore further urbanization. Our next point is urbanization as a geographical process. The proportion of the country's total population living in urban areas are generally being considered as a measure of the level of urbanization. Population growth in the urban areas is partly a function of natural increase in population and partly the result of migration from rural areas and smaller towns. An increase in the level of urbanization is possible only through the migration of people from rural to urban areas. Hence, migration or change of location of residence of people is a basic mechanism of urbanization. This is essentially a geographical process in the sense that it involves the movement of people from one place to another. There are three major types of spatial movements of people relevant to the urbanization process. These are the migration of people from rural villages to towns and cities, leading to the macro urbanization; the migration of people from some smaller towns and cities to large cities and capitals, leading to metropolization. It is essentially a product of the centralization of administrative, political and economic forces in the country at the national and state capitals. It is also a product of intense interaction between the cities and the integration of the national economy and urban centers into a viable, independent system. The spatial overflow of the metropolitan population into the peripheral urban fringe villages leading to a process of suburbanization. It is essentially an outgrowth of the metropoliticization, and here there is a reverse flow of people from the city to the countryside. Here we want to close this lecture. Thanks for listening.